Right, we are turning our attention back to a shocking story from earlier this month. The Ugandan athlete Rebecca Cheptegei, who had competed in the marathon in the Paris Olympics, died due to burns sustained after being set on fire by her ex-boyfriend. Cheptegei had been living and training in Kenya, and Viola Cheptoo Lagat is a Kenyan athlete and activist. She competed at the 2016 Olympics in Rio, and Viola is with us on the line. Good evening. Thank you for taking the call, Viola.
Hi, Eoin. Thank you for having me.
Great to have you on. Could I just begin by asking you to describe what the last month, I guess, has been like in athletic circles in Kenya and in Uganda? Because even from this geographical remove to the story, it's very, very difficult to put into words just how shocking and horrifying the whole thing is.
Yeah, the last few weeks or a month has been really stressful. It's been very hard to process the events that has occurred since Cheptegei was set on fire. And for us as athletes in general, before I can even speak about Tirop Angels, it's sad for us to understand that one of us went to the Olympics participating in an event that most of us would die to be there. I mean, every single athlete it's a dream to make to the Olympics. So for Cheptegei to have made it and then come back home instead of celebrating, she's being killed. It's really hard to process, and it's really frustrating because it seems that there's a rise in abuse, especially with women in sports right now, and it doesn't give us any consolation, especially as a foundation, Tirop Angels, because when we started our organization, it was at a moment where Agnes also went to the Olympics, came back, participated in the Diamond Leagues, and then shortly after that, she was also killed. So it's really hard. It's been difficult.
Does the sense of shock and horror get replicated in the entirety of society in Kenya and Uganda? Is this an athletic story, and then amongst a section of society, it's something that shocks them? Or is this something that really has cast a pall over the whole of west of Africa, almost, or east of Africa over the course of the last few weeks? I mean, I'm interested in how society has viewed this story more so than just the sports aspect of the countries.
Yeah, when Cheptegei was actually burned, when the news broke out, it was a shock to everyone. It didn't matter if you were an athlete, a man or a female. It was a moment where everybody was just really shocked. It did not feel real, especially for somebody of that kind of a rank in sports with such a big name. We didn't, most of the time the society expects people who are established to be happy and not having these violent issues in their homes. But for that news to break out, everybody was in shock, and they were also enraged. Everybody was enraged about what happened to Cheptegei, and everybody wanted justice for her. And unfortunately, when she passed away now is when everybody was even more angry, because we realized that these cases of violence will take years for justice to be served.
And that is a key point in all of this, because it comes as one of three shocking stories with regards to world-class female athletes over the past number of years. Cheptegei this year, you've mentioned your good friend Agnes Tirop, and Damaris Mutua as well in 2021, who was strangled. And these murders have yet to be viewed with any sense of justice at this point. There has been nothing secured against the killers. And before we get into Tirop, that's just worth stating at this point, Viola, that these cases have not been closed whatsoever.
Yeah, the case is still ongoing, especially for Agnes. And sadly enough, with the case of Damaris, the perpetrator has not even been arrested because he flew or he disappeared, basically. Everybody thinks he went back to his country because we heard he was from Ethiopia. And that is one of the cases that is still disturbing because he's out there. And even with the case of Agnes, justice hasn't been served. There's still court cases, appearances every now and then, which I believe the case, another hearing is coming up in October. So for many people, for you to understand, especially, I don't know if it's everywhere in the world, but at least here in Kenya, it takes so many years and resources for these cases to be for these cases to receive justice. And for those who don't have enough finances to follow up on the cases, to pay the lawyers, and to show up to court to court hearings every now and then, it can be frustrating for families, and at some point most of them give up because it doesn't seem that there will be justice at the end anyways. So this is something that is really bothering us, and we would hope that there will be a better way to fix this, especially the system when it comes to the judicial system here in Kenya, with so many cases piling up. And so it's frustrating, and we are not going to give up. We are going to wait for justice to happen for our women and our girls in sports, our friends who we've lost through these tragic events of gender-based violence.
So Agnes Tirop, really a world-class athlete, a world medalist, your friend, as I've mentioned, she died in 2021, and you set up Tirop's Angels in the aftermath. Mm-hmm. For people who aren't overly familiar with the background to this story, can you bring us back to 2021? Because I know that you were with her in the days before her death, and it might have been apparent to people who'd spent time with her that there was looming trouble back home.
Yeah. So Tirop Angels, it was formed after Agnes also was killed when she came back home. For everyone who didn't know, Agnes was an Olympic athlete. She participated in 2021 Olympics, and she was fourth in the 5,000. So when she came back to Kenya, she went back to Germany to an event that I also participated at the headquarters, because Adidas usually hosts an event for all the Adidas athletes every year. So I was there with her, and she came in the evening. She was so happy. She seemed changed because she was always keeping to herself. But at this particular moment, she was so happy. She was upbeat. She wasn't herself. She had her earphones. She was listening to music. Something that tells us that, not everyone who looks happy is not going through something. Because if I think I should have been somebody with that one person to tell if something was going on at that point. But we still flew back to Kenya together. We were at the airport. We even offered her a ride back home, and she said somebody is coming for her. So we waited, and then my husband came, and she said, "Okay, you guys can just leave. I will come, and we will meet next week in Iten." So that was the last time, and to this day, it still bothers me that she was going through something. She was going through abuse, a lot of abuse, in fact, but I could not tell because of the brave face that she put on for the whole world, yet her own life was crumbling behind closed doors. So it was really disturbing, and that's why when she died, we decided, myself and my other friends, we decided we are not going to sit there anymore and just wait for anyone to put a stop to gender-based violence. So that's how Tirop Angels was started in 2021. And basically we go to schools, we go to camps, we go to villages, we talk to women from introducing what gender-based violence, because it's so normalized. Everybody thinks it's okay to be beaten by your husband or a boyfriend. And we are saying no to that. It's not okay. And when with young kids, we also still tell them that, if somebody touches you inappropriately, you have to report, because that is also something that is happening in our society. And also with our girls in sports, especially those upcoming and those who have made it, there's so much abuse because of money. We've realized even from the 2024 Olympics, the most scorers especially in Kenya, were women. We only had about 3 men who were scoring at the Olympics. And so there is a lot of men who are feeling that women are rising above them, and they can't stand that. And so we are telling our women, it's okay to rise. Don't be afraid that anything bad is going to happen to you. Keep rising. Protect yourself as much as possible. So we talk to them on how to safeguard her own self, and then also how to report, how to seek help. And as Tirop Angels, we are here to support if somebody has been beaten and they need medical attention, we will support that. We'll also support legal process if they need a lawyer. And we also teach them about finances. How do you protect yourself? How do you secure what you have earned rightfully? Because a lot of them, they are being scouted by men out there who pretend to be coaches, and then eventually boyfriends, and then eventually husbands. And these men don't come with the right intentions, and especially at a young age where a girl is only 16, 17. So for a girl who does not have shoes, coming from a very vulnerable background, they believe that person has good intentions. If somebody is providing for you shoes, shelter, food, and is promising to link you with an agent who will potentially get you a shoe contract. So all these things, we are telling them that they should look out for the green signs and also the red signs in anybody that comes to their lives.
That last section there is pretty much a representation, sadly, of the life of Agnes Tirop. In her life, it was very much a case of a coach who would eventually become a partner, who exploited the vulnerability of a young girl in the first instance, and an athlete. And that is the case here. That is the situation that a lot of young athletes have to deal with in Kenya and in a number of other countries in that area of Africa. And that coercive, controlling situation, Tirop almost is one example of hundreds and hundreds of these situations, you would suspect.
Yeah, Agnes is just one example, because when Agnes died, when we started Tirop Angels, a lot of women came to us because they felt that there was an outlet, there was a platform where they could come, there was a safe space for them to express how they felt, what they've been going through. And we were shocked at the beginning because we have friends whom we trained together, and we had no idea what they were going through. And until Tirop Angels started is when they were able to come in and tell us, I've bought land. This guy only wrote it under his own name. I have a car. It's not even under my name. I have a bank account. Whenever I come back from a race, I'm being beaten and I have to go to the bank to withdraw money to give it to this guy. And so a lot of them have come forward, which I'm happy that happened, that we are here for our women to listen to them. But it's also sad that there are so many women out there who have gone through it for a very long time, and they have lost what they earned throughout their careers. And now they have nothing. They're at the mercy of these perpetrators who pretended to be a coach and then a husband later on, when they were only looking out for themselves. So just to put it, to make it clear, we were in Headso around the same time with Haile, or no, actually the following year in 2022. And Haile Gebrselassie told us that it's even worse in Ethiopia because there's no freedom of journalism there. Whatever is being shown outside the world is filtered, and these cases are even worse than Kenya. So I believe that this is an issue that has continued, especially in most countries here in Africa, with women rising and men who are used to women not being the providers in their families are not okay with that. They're feeling that there's competition, or when a woman is successful, she's going to leave me, which is not the case. So I feel like there's a lot of violence going on in all these countries. We see a lot of Olympians, and when you hear stories about them, for those who have not even spoken out about their own issues yet, it's just really sad. And we as Tirop Angels, we keep encouraging them to speak up and to seek help, and not to feel that they're going to be stigmatized, because everybody now is starting to realize that this is a problem. And like when our mothers were being beaten by our dads, they've realized that this is a big problem, and that if we don't say no as a society, as a community of runners, as a human race, then it's not going to end.
One of the most stark statistics that sums up one of the multitude of issues here comes from the Kenya Land Alliance, is that women own less than 2% of the country's property in their names alone. So this aspect of ownership, you've mentioned that property, cars, whatever the case may be, is one significant issue here that society essentially projects on to sport, because these people are successful and they make money and they represent their country internationally. Is there something, Viola, outside of that, just in the mere sense of the empowerment of women in Kenya, which seems to carry with it a whole host of issues amongst the male population in Kenya, that even if we leave aside the property and the cars for 1 second, is there just something about the icon of a female sports star, a superstar, that is troubling for half of the population in the country?
I think it's because men have always been the successful ones. The society did not allow a woman to succeed as much as they do right now. I could give an example for during the Boston Marathon, for example. I'm just saying it generally. Remember, I think it was Catherine Switzer who was being pulled off the race because she was a female. So for us here in Kenya, this is something that it feels new to the community, to be seeing somebody like Faith Kipyegon breaking 2-3 records when they were used to steeplechasers like Kipketer and all these athletes running and performing and shining and raising the Kenyan flag so high. Nobody is used to this. People are feeling like, what's going on? It has always been about the men. And now where did the women come from? Number one, most women are now being educated. Number two, women are the most earners. And then now a lot of women are also into buying properties and investing more than they've ever done in their lives. Women, we are playing catch up in our communities. And this catch up is actually bringing issues. It's not only in running, but in everything we do, women are rising faster than men. And I don't know if there is a way that a boy child has been left behind, because for us girls, we're just catching up. But I think that's the biggest problem. We are rising at a rate that we cannot be stopped, and nobody can figure out how to stop it. And just the mentality that a man is above a woman. That's the biggest thing, because a man has always been above the woman, and the woman has been the submissive one. And now it feels like, okay, a woman is rising. She's making her own money. She's investing. She's building her own home before she's getting married. How can I control this woman anymore? So it's all about control. It's all about women being on the rise, especially in their careers, and a man probably remaining at the same level that they were a few years back. So I believe that's what the problem is.
Obviously, with somebody with a hugely successful athletics career like yourself, Viola, I wonder, have you experienced issues as a successful female athlete? Like, what has your lived experience been as a woman who has excelled as a Kenyan sports star?
Myself, I haven't had any gender-based violence issues throughout my, let's say, my career, because number one, I went to America to study at a very young age, right after high school. And I was an athlete when I was back in Kenya. I played basketball, I played field hockey, because when I was young, I've always been very skinny. And our society would look at somebody who is a little bit bigger to be healthier. They are wealthy. They have enough money to buy enough food. So for me, I was being bullied for being skinny. And I did not want to run. So I went into basketball. I went into field hockey. So probably I want to thank God for that, because I maybe skipped or I was protected from something that could have happened to me. Let's say if I was a rising athlete at a junior level. So, but for me, I went into transition into professional running after university. So I went to America. I studied through college. And that is where, when I was in America, is when I learned that being beaten is not okay. You can call the police. The police can actually come, because here the police will not come. So when I went there, I was like, oh, okay. So a boyfriend cannot even slap you, or somebody cannot threaten you. It was so new. And so I learned these things at a very young age as well, that you cannot be beaten by anyone. Somebody should address you like an adult and have a conversation. And if they're not okay, they let them walk away. And so I lived with my brothers also, who treated their wives very nicely, and there was so much respect. And I learned that when it comes to looking for a partner. So I saw the green signs in their own relationships, and that's what I always kept seeking for. Unlike girls back here at home, what happens to our moms, our sisters who are here in Kenya, we are more likely to overlook that because it's so normal. And so I looked at my life differently when I went to America because of the exposure that I had. And when I met my husband, I think I was at an age where I was able to decide for myself if I wanted to get married or not, and who was I looking for. And I took my time to look for someone to be my partner in life. And so I think that's the difference. And I'm happy that I met a good person. And I haven't had any GBV issues.
On a more benign level than that, have you ever felt the sense of being somebody who's gone to the United States, come home, had a very successful athletics career throughout that time? Have you ever felt that sense that there are other people looking at you in Kenya at home who think that a woman shouldn't be having this level of success, shouldn't be going to the United States, shouldn't be broadening the horizons and just having a phenomenal career and a phenomenal life? Do you get that tone still at home as a female sports person?
Oh yeah, I got that all the time, especially when I came back from the United States, and it was sad because this negative energy did not only come from men but also women. And at that point, it was my fellow athletes who felt that, oh, she went to America, she feels she's all that. How come she's now here? She just comes to Kenya, she makes the Olympic team and all that. And I think it's all the mentality that goes into this as well, because the society accepts it. The society has allowed the abuse of women, that women themselves also at some point have joined the abuse when it comes to treating women very badly because they have done something better for themselves than what they have. And so this, I believe, also contributes to how men looks at us and say, she's not better than me as a man, and I'm not going to allow her to feel that way. Yet I feel like a woman like, let's say myself or other women who are accomplished should be celebrated in our own societies, should be the examples of to young girls who are still in the village, who wants to get out of poverty, who wants to avoid early pregnancies, who wants to continue with their education and pursue their careers. I believe it should be the other way around. We should be celebrated. We should be the examples. We should be the mentors for the young girls. But I felt the resistance from my own people when I came back from America, and that took a while. And when I started Tirop Angels, I knew I was going to feel a lot of resistance and a lot of negative energy from some people. But also I knew there were people who are going to support me. And so I just stayed positive and hopeful for the best. Yeah.
Because I suspect you're not the only one who's done that. I presume that a lot of the athletes in Iten have made the same pilgrimage as you to go and get the scholarship and get the best training possible in the United States, and then come back home and have a better chance of representing Kenya and have a better chance of winning medals for your country. So I'm interested in what that high performance setup in the mountains in Kenya actually looks like now. Is it full of women like you who face questions from their society for A, being a woman who dares to succeed in sport, and B, potentially being a woman who's actually gone and left the country and gone to a nation like the United States to try and further their career?
Yeah, there are so many women. If you look at, I'll just give you an example for like Lokedi. She also went to America. She competed for college. She came back to Kenya, made the Olympics team, and she has been doing really, really well in major marathons. So we have a lot of women who have gone to America, come back to Kenya to compete at the trials, make the Olympic team or the World Championship team, and represent Kenya. And the resistance, I speak with them as well because of the experiences that they have had, and it's not pleasant. For some reason, they still get this negative energy from people around us instead of them being welcome back and maybe assimilating to the community that is of running, because Kenya, we are known as a community of runners or a country of runners. So yeah, it still happens to a lot of us who have been out and then come back to Kenya, but I'm still encouraging girls. We are still encouraging girls to take advantage of the scholarships, because I believe this is what I believe. Education is very powerful. It can change a lot of things in your life. It can open so many doors and opportunities for you. So I always tell girls, if you get an opportunity to go to America or anywhere to get education, please take advantage of that, because it changes a lot of things in your lives, or it can also provide a lot of opportunities.
Definitely. There's just a couple of other questions that I have, and yeah. I guess it's to do with what is changing, if things are changing. And you would suspect that the athletics governing body in Kenya has real power to prevent further horrifying cases from occurring. Like even in the case of Agnes Tirop, if there were better supports around a young racing phenom in the country, you would be able to prevent them from falling into the trap of getting lured in by a coach who eventually becomes a partner, who eventually becomes a very controlling and very sinister figure in their lives. Is that happening in Kenya right now? Are the athletics governing bodies, are they actually putting plans in place to ensure that young girls are safe when they're out running and are given a pathway to ensure that they can develop their athletic prowess in a safe manner?
Unfortunately, there is none. We've been in existence since 2021 as Tirop Angels. And when we started, unfortunately, some people from the Athletics Kenya were among the people who made sure that Tirop Angels did not succeed. And that is very sad, because we were just there to protect girls and to preach peace and to make sure that nobody else is going to lose their lives, especially a female athlete who was so established. She had a life ahead of her. I know Agnes was going to break so many records. So for Athletics Kenya, for example, to not feel the pain of losing their most performing, or one of the promising athletes in Kenya, it was something that I could not process it myself. And I believe at that point, they should have been the ones to say, Viola, you are a sportswoman, you are an athlete, and you understand from a woman's perspective what women go through. Can we partner together? Can we talk about how we are going to end gender-based violence? How can we prevent this from happening again? I did not get that kind of communication from them, and it felt that we were alone as a few athletes who started Tirop Angels, just trying to find out what the answers are, what the solutions are, how can we help victims of GBV. For us, if Athletics Kenya would have come on board, number one thing I would have told them is, we need to find an association of coaches where every coach is registered under Athletics Kenya. They say all coaches are registered. They are not. Honestly, there are a lot of coaches who have actually stolen money from athletes. And when you ask them, these athletes say, we've reported to Athletics Kenya and we were told that that coach is not registered or that agent is not registered. So how are we losing athletes? And then nobody's feeling bad about it and doing something about it. So for me, they should have had an association of coaches where every coach is registered under Athletics Kenya. They are being assessed at least twice or three times every year. Athletes give feedback on how the coach is performing and if there is any gender-based violence issues happening within their own camps. 3, there should have been camps that are set up for women, especially the upcoming girls who are at the very high risk of being manipulated, coerced into being coached by someone who has intentions to just steal from them and just maybe destroy their lives eventually, the way it happened to Agnes. That has not happened. Cheptegei has passed away. Everybody looked like they were being enraged, but we did not feel the weight of it from what people were saying, especially here in Kenya. I did not get a call from, let's say, Athletics Kenya or anyone on how we can come together and make sure that gender-based violence is going to end in this country, especially with our female athletes. So it's quite frustrating that our athletics body is not doing enough. I know World Athletics has something about safeguarding when it comes to GBV, but I don't think that is enough. I believe the IOC should come up with ways to help victims of GBV, because they have lost 2 Olympians. They have lost 2 Olympians. And at IOC, International Olympics Committee, should be enraged enough to say, in every country, we are going to set up a safe space for our athletes to go to if they're having issues in their own relationships through athletics body within each country. So I believe IOC and Athletics Kenya should have had a conversation on how to set up camps for girls, how to make sure that more coaches or more physiotherapists or massage therapists are women are being trained here in Kenya, that also they should have counselors for girls who have gone through abuse from their own families and are more likely to fall into the same circle as their parents, that they have seen violence at home. But this is not happening. We are just going to keep losing athletes, and it doesn't seem that people are being moved, especially from the athletics body. It's really sad.
And on the global level, you mentioned the IOC here. You'd suspect that maybe World Athletics could have a similar level of power, just given how central athletics is to Kenya. This is the sport that we are talking about here. Do you get a sense at that global level that there is an appetite to try and help, to try and affect change? Or do you think that the IOC very much looks at Kenya and says, that's their problem, we don't want to be involved here whatsoever?
Okay, I haven't had a conversation with anyone from IOC. I only had a woman, her name is Yetsa, she said she's the chairperson from World Athletics in charge of, I think, gender or GBV. So she reached out to me and she wants to have a conversation with me. But I believe IOC, World Athletics Kenya, from the world level, should be looking at Kenya as one of the countries that produces the best athletes in the world. And I believe they should feel the need to protect them, because Kenyans have been known to be the best athletes in the world, alongside Ethiopia and other countries. But if one of those countries that produces, there's Eliud Kipchoge in this Kenya, he's a man, yes, that's fine. We have Faith Kipyegon. She's world record holder, 2 times. We have Beatrice Cheptegei. She has broken world records. We have Beatrice Chebet, 5,000 world record holder. We have Agnes Chebet, 10,000 road race world record holder. We have Mary Keitany, former world record holder in the marathon. We have Paris Chepchirchir, world record holder from London Marathon for women only event. I mean, what is not there to look at and say, this is an endangered species? We have the best athletes in the world, and they are the most endangered in their own country. What can we do? I think that should be something that everybody should be sitting there and thinking, if we don't take care of this, all these medals that we see, all these world records that we are looking at, we are going to lose these women, because they are on their rise still. They are performing on the highest level than their counterparts who are men. And there's a high chance that at least one of them is going to become a victim. Because when that happened to Agnes, maybe everybody thought it was just, by the way, it just happened to one athlete. Now we have 3. Mm-hmm. What are we going to do with now who are already in here in this country? And by the way, there are so many women, world record holders, Diamond League champions, all that, going through GBV right now. I can't mention their names, yes. But if IOC, if World Athletics, if Athletics Kenya is not going to take care of this problem, we are going to be back to what had happened a month ago or 3 years ago with Agnes. Yeah.
One last question before I let you go, and just to kind of give a few statistics around this before I put it to you. Just Kenya's Demographic and Health Survey of last year found that more than 11 million women, which is about 20% of the population, have experienced physical or sexual violence from an intimate partner during their lives. And in that context, in January of this year, there were 32 victims of femicide, 32 in January alone this year. And this led to massive protests in Kenya, the largest ever protest against sexual and gender-based violence in the country. Are we starting to see a tipping point in Kenya as a country right now when we look at scenes like that, the scenes back in January?
Yeah, we're having a lot of gender-based violence issues on the rise. When you talked about the January issue from Nairobi Kware, that was actually 42 women. It got upgraded to 42 women. Initially, right. I guess they mentioned that it was 32, but they upgraded it to 42. Now, those are the ones that were found, that they were able to be identified. How about those who haven't been identified? You mentioned the statistics of GBV in Kenya. It's actually on the rise, and that much, I think it brought something, especially to women on rising up against GBV as a country. But I don't think that's enough if we are not creating opportunities for women to seek help and to feel protected enough for them to run away from these gender-based violence issues.
So do you think the uprising is going to change something? Is probably a better question.
Oh, yeah, I hope it's going to change. I had a call from the Department of Gender here in Kenya. I've had calls from different departments who want to have a conversation. I've had UN women call me. They want to have a conversation on how we can end gender-based violence in Kenya. I believe this is the best time for us to bring a change, and I'm very hopeful that this time around something is going to change. But I'm still calling on everyone to stand up and say no to gender-based violence and create opportunities for victims of GBV to seek help and to end gender-based violence.
All right. Viola Cheptoo Lagat, thank you so much for your time this evening. Really appreciate it.
Thank you. Have a good evening.